This is for everybody, but it's better if you're a concept artist because I'm going to talk about some stuff that relate specifically to concept art. How many of you have seen this thing before? I posted it on Facebook. On Monday we talked about some of the different categories of concept art skill. So I'm pulling this up because I'm going to keep referring to it as we go. And we're just going to kind of freestyle. Michael was nice enough to give us some of his work for a reaming, so that's going to be fun. Although it's really good, which is annoying because if it sucked, it'd be way easier to talk about. And then Lake is an amazing concept artist that I work with, and I'm going to show some of his stuff, and we're going to just kind of go back and forth. And he's going to talk about like some of his processes that he used, because I'm getting outdated. I'm getting suckier at art because all I do is tell people what to do. But you're going to hear it from him. He actually does the concept. So.
And he hires people that are better than me and better than him.
Right, exactly. I do like hiring people better than me and everyone. It's too bad all that works under NDA. This is one of the guys, though. I don't know if you guys have seen this piece. Raise your hands if you've seen this piece before. All right, cool. Yeah, it's Justin. This piece was done using a lot of 3D. That's one of Justin's, and at the Monday talk we talked about the process that he used for that, like using 3D, texturing that 3D, and then going to a final and trying to tell a story. And this process, it's a really shorthand for how almost all concept art is done now. We use 3D for everything architectural. Lake knows, you just recently learned.
I started learning Moto in April, and it's been a hellish journey until now, so that's fun. I'm kit bashing most of my stuff together, and these guys are kind enough to teach me a lot more.
Yeah, like this guy was used out of a lot of kit bash pieces and stuff, and kind of assembled with kit bash pieces and sort of 3D modeling skill. But this guy Justin has a lot of modeling skill. So if you're an environment modeler and you want to get into concept art, those two fields are merging a lot more, and they're going to be even more. And all the guys that I know that work on, let's say, Avatar and big feature films, for those guys, 3D is not like a nice to know. For those guys, it's like, well, obviously, like they know 3D as good as a lot of 3D artists do. So I'm just giving you a heads up. That's where the industry's going. The reason is, so you can do stuff like this. If you had to draw this would take 1,000 years. It would take probably like a month or 2 months, and it wouldn't look as cool. We're not using 3D and stuff as a shortcut because it's a cheat, because we need to get it done in time. We're using it because it actually looks better, I think, because you get a lot of the things clearly worked out, and you can iterate more. So as a student, I would say invest in yourself. I mean, if there's anything you think you need, just buy it within reason, like within $1,000 reason. I assume you're all here at GDC and you all have computers, so you're not in a third world country, right? You can afford to spend $1,000 on something, even though you're eating top ramen maybe, but still.
Well, I work hourly with Shaddy, and the way that I kind of think about it is, will it save me an hour's worth of work, and does it cost less than an hour in buying it? Like, would it take me more than an hour to model it? Well, then I'm just going to buy it.
Totally. And I bill more than that, so for me, it's worth even less. I was like, yeah, if it cost me like 4 hours of your time, I'm like, yeah, forget it. It's totally worth it. So another piece, just to walk you through, was this one, a really realistic space shot. Again, this shot was a ton of detail. It was for that game Adrift. I don't know if you guys saw it in the Microsoft area. It was over there. They have a demo running, and it looks amazing. In the Microsoft booth, there's one monitor running this, and it's a really beautiful game. But this is one of the initial ideas we did for them, and it started off with really loose 3D that we kind of didn't know what we were doing with. We just kind of mocked it up. It started with really rough 3D, and then kit bash pieces. You see the power of, like, even if you can't model very well, you had these rough pieces that turned into these like kit bash pieces. This is a found, what was this, a found NASA capsule?
Yeah, the NASA website actually has a library of all of their parts on their website.
Right.
So you can just go in and download their models. They make them available for everybody to use.
Totally. Yeah, it's amazing. So these models are just free for anyone to just grab. And you see how like the difference between that and that, you just start getting an idea of like a bunch of ideas for shapes that just immediately just visualize it so much quicker, and you don't have to spend time modeling all those pieces. So what's weird is back in the day, you might have like sketched some stuff out by, oh, this thing is sweet, by the way. Can I give it up to Wacom? This thing is awesome. This thing works with everything. You can use this with your old Cintiq Companion or your Intuos or anything. It has all the buttons on it, and it sits in your hand, and you can go anywhere with it, and you no longer have to worry about, well, actually, you know, a lot of people use the keyboard, I found out. How many people use a touch strip or the buttons? How many people only use the keyboard and they just ignore these buttons? Yeah, that's like half the people. And that's a damn shame, because this thing, if you can force yourself to try to use it at first, just really force yourself. Think about what you really need, and especially if you put, I like brush size on the swivel thing. brush size on the swivel thing is so handy because you can see like you're making marks, and then on the fly, my hand is like constantly here. And as soon as I lift the pen up, as soon as the pen lifts off and I hit this, it changes size. So it's like so handy. My two thumbs are working simultaneously all the time. Now you can still hold down the Alt. How many people do the hold down the right click slide? Raise your hand if you do the hold down right click slide. Only one of you? Okay, well that's a good alternative too, but this thing is awesome. Plus, it has all these like feely things on it that you can kind of, you can like, where everything is. This feels like home. I already love it. Anyway, so the point is, let's say you were gonna draw. You were like, I'm gonna draw a space pod of some kind. And you were thinking about shapes of space pods, right? And you were sketching it out first loosely and thinking about what the shapes could be. You'd be limited because your brain does not have possibly the detail that you couldn't make this up. It's too weird. Do you know what I mean? Unless you've been drawing space stuff your entire life and you're like a connoisseur of it, and there's some artists that are like that. They have drawn one thing or a lot of one thing, so they're really good at it. Unless you've been doing that forever, you couldn't come up with this kind of free detail that might be a jump off for you to think of something else. So it's almost like you are having your sketching ability and then augmenting it with something real, and then having your sketching ability too. And the tricky thing is about these new ways of concepting is either you're a drawing purist or you're a 3D artist. And you have a lot of 3D artists who can't design, and you have a lot of drawing people who can't kit bash because it feels too dirty. But if you can get your brain to be able to start sketching and then switch it off and be like, I found a piece. Okay, I'm gonna let that piece do some work for me. And then I'm gonna come up with more pieces. And I'll give you a perfect example, because this was really interesting. Justin showed me this image after we fleshed it out a little more. He didn't like this design. Now, I thought it was fine. To me, it's great. But he's got this insane eye for what he likes.
Well, we were just talking about this the other day, because for a long time, I was trying to learn kit bashing from Justin and Shaddy, and it was all put parts together, and then design the space and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. But we just found out from Justin, he takes all of this stuff together, and then he goes back in and does all of the drawing. So he has all of this 3D as a basis, and then he goes back in and designs all the parts out to be more to his liking. Right, and that's what the huge advantage, like you see this is the missing link right here. This is the missing link. It's the hardest part too. Yeah, this is the part where to go from here, this is like anyone, a lot of people can do this, a lot of people can draw, but the kind of person that can do both of these, where they have all the pieces in there and they don't give a shit. They took this piece and they said, I don't care, I don't like that piece anymore. I'm actually gonna design a shape of a piece that I think is more unique and interesting. He's got a really keen eye for this. More than me, more than Lake, more than all of us. So to me, if I'd have seen this, I'd have been like, and maybe a lot of you, you'd have been like, well, actually that one was fine. Like, I don't know what you changed, right? But for him, he goes in and thinks about, well, I need to hit this right tone of space. He designs the panels. And this is where drawing comes in modern concept art. This is where it enters the game again. So if you have it kind of takes a different level of thinking and intelligence. If you have the brain to be like, yes, I remember how to draw, but I'm gonna use it when I need it. I'm gonna use 3D when I need it, and you can just be fluid with whatever process is the best for that moment. Your work just steps up a millionfold, but it's really complicated, right? Because it like ruins your flow, you know, to grab a piece and put it in here and then start drawing again on top of it. You get in one mindset or the other. So that's what's so valuable about this awesome stage, and you can see what it ends up with, like really cool stuff that came from 3D, but a lot of stuff that he made up and designed on his own. Here's some other mechs he designed. We were just talking about it. Right. Here's some mechs that he designed, some preliminary versions of that mech that you saw. I want to talk a little bit about this image because it's really fun. This is an image we did for Cliffy B. You guys know Cliffy B? All right, this was his Christmas card. He is one of the founders that started at Epic Games and made all the Gears of War franchises. He's a game designer, and recently started his own studio called Boss Key, which is doing a brand new IP. It's totally awesome, and it's really like getting started. So him and his wife, they wanted a Christmas card of him as a centaur holding his wife as a mermaid, right? Now, they requested the volcano and the lightning too.
And the lightning.
Yeah.
So I like to think we're a classy studio, right? So this was a fun challenge, because how do you take what is supposed to be cheesy on purpose and make it badass, but like classy, like really slick badass? And Lake did it, because when I look at this, I almost forget how ridiculous it is. I just look at it and I'm like, oh, that's actually like, that actually kind of looks just cool.
This is pretty close to the most fun I've ever had working on a project for a client.
Right, and he is a rare breed that would let us do something like that. This was doubly hard because it had to look like them.
And especially because they kept sending us terrible references.
Terrible reference. So let's
Terrible reference.
look at some of that reference. I got Cliff's permission to show this stuff.
Okay, good.
Okay, so here's some of the pictures.
Well, but here's the trick, because we first mocked out the composition and the facial expressions and the lighting and everything, and we said, send us exactly this pose and this picture.
Let me
And
see if
then
I
he
can.
does that.
Let me see if we can find actually those originals. Here were some of the original ones, right?
And this is like a couple of different things. Like all of this stuff is drawn, but this is like copied from this other dude that we know. His name's Mike Garn. He wrote a couple of Photoshop scripts that let us turn shapes into Photoshop shapes. So I built a couple of horse shapes, and that's what those are made out of.
I thought I saw a horse in here somewhere. No, here's your fish that you used.
Yeah.
You guys can see that fish texture on the final. How hard was that to find?
Harder than you'd think, because like people light their fish terribly, and mermaids are not a common subject to get correct constantly.
Right. But it's actually interesting how you almost had to find something with the right lighting, right?
You have to find something with the right lighting. If you're going to be photo bashing, kit bashing, or doing any kind of 3D, the most important thing is finding the correct lighting. And you ask anybody that does this, they'll say the same thing. Mache, who's like the god of this stuff. Is
Right.
the one that's-
Do you guys know Maciej Kusiara?
Yeah.
You know who that is? If you don't, ask a neighbor who's nodding. Look it up.
And he was the one that said directly to me, lighting is the most important part. If you don't have the right lighting, you're going to fail.
Right. And it's because you couldn't make this up. Again, the advantage of the photo is that you couldn't make this up. If I was or anyone was gonna start doing fish scales, right? Could you imagine that the pattern was like this? It's too weird. It's too weird. You would never think of it. But in the final, especially after it gets reduced, it just looks good. It just looks natural and good. It doesn't even look like a photo was bashed in. It just looks good. I'll pull back to that sketch so you can talk about that. So, oh yeah, so there was this. We got some more.
But as you can see, Cliffy sent us exactly the wrong angle, with the wrong lighting, with the most bewilderingly difficult expression. On
So
his
that
face.
was
It
tough
just
because we were like, we got to make him look badass. That's the main thing. This is like his Christmas card. He's got to look like, a total
and
badass.
he just looks confused.
Yeah, and Lauren sent us pictures too, and those were awesome.
But
So-
I didn't end up using any of these in the final.
But
none of them.
because the lighting wasn't right.
The lighting wasn't right, and they weren't from the right angle, and basically everything that could go wrong was wrong. Everything except for the likeness.
And then, what'd you do?
These were DAZ models originally, so to figure out the lighting to get it to look correct in the comps that we were going to send them, we work in a program called DAZ. It's like a free version of Poser. They have these huge libraries of stuff.
Raise your hand if you've used DAZ before.
Yeah.
You guys use DAZ? So easy to learn. Totally learn it.
And I would consider it almost ludicrous to not use it now.
Right, we use it for everything. Just real quick, I'll show you on this painting that Lake did, which is the most badass thing we've ever done, ever.
Shaddy.
Yeah, it's pretty much the best.
Because I'm doing work for Wizards and like some other illustration companies now, and I do all of my finals in the purest form. I draw it out, I paint it, but I do all of the models in DAZ first so I get the lighting right.
Let me show you guys what the DAZ model for that looked like. As when we were first figuring out the composition. But you can see where you got basically all the elements, the basic elements that were going to be in the shot.
And I actually did this model in DAZ, but this is me. I took a photo of myself doing the pose that I had worked out in 3D first. And because I had worked it out in 3D, I knew exactly what I needed to do.
Right. So it's actually, there's so many different kinds of cheating that are going on. It starts with the sketch, and then after the sketch, you're going into 3D DAZ and posing it. And then after that, you're posing it with the iPhone light for a camera.
Get that fireball light to
Yeah,
right on the side.
because you said
So
lighting
that's
is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So look how carefully he set up the lighting. And where'd you get all the stuff?
I just had it. I did Krav Maga for a while, so I have all my sparring gear.
You did Krav
and
Maga, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
it
you're
works
fucking
great
around.
for leather armor. If you find boxing pads and that kind of stuff, it turns into leather armor really easy. Because all you have to do is add striations and then you're done.
Right. Well, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah. This is, if you go down, Shaddy, this is my girlfriend's handbag right there.
Oh,
Right.
nice. This one right here?
Leather scaly pattern. It's fantastic.
That's cool.
No, I have a pair of underarm holsters that I bought a while ago to carry around sketchbooks in. I don't have them with me. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's what the harnesses on it all are. I have like a bunch of different straps and leather bags that I have. You can pick them up at thrift stores. They're really cheap. And like, again, if it saves me an hour of work, I'm going to pay $10 for a bag. That's easy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like apps, just buy it. Who cares if it sucks? It's like $1. Even for stylized stuff, we had a job that was, let me see if I can find it. It was this. It's kind of low res here, but you can see the sketch that we got from the client for Spark. When we had that, we also just built it in 3D, and the advantage of that is once we had it in 3D, really quickly, within a half a day or a day, we could just pose it however we want, texture it however we want. We could pick our shots. You could send them to me, and we could know exactly what the final is going to look like. So my artist had sent me this, right? And we put like a little filter on them so you can kind of just get an abstract sense of them. But now, if we don't like this composition, it didn't take any time to do. We already have the 3D, right? So we can just move the camera and
like
take another shot.
Concept art, if you were getting close to a final and somebody had asked you to move the camera a little bit to the left, that's a week of work you're looking at.
Yeah.
And then when you're working like this, it's like a couple of days. Maybe.
And then you get the black and white, and always the finals don't really vary from the black and white all that much. We try to keep them somewhat similar, and this one it probably veered a little bit. But the final ended up just being textures on top of, 3D that we had built.
So who was this?
Justin worked on this. Another thing too is like a lot of people like stylized stuff, and I do too. We don't get that much work in the stylized department, but we want to get more. But stylized talent is so much more difficult to find. Something we didn't talk about in the Monday talk was some of the best stylized work by this guy Ryan Lang. Raise your hand if you know who this is. What's up, David? Yeah. So he is the best, and what makes him the best is, I think, personally, is that he's got really good shapes, right? Really dynamic, strong drawing, all that. But lighting stays real, pretty much, right? Like this is indiscernible from pretty much realistic lighting. Maybe the saturation is bumped up a little bit, but his lighting, and this is Eitan's work, but let me find another one of Ryan's. This is exaggerated maybe a bit, but he knows how like light scatters through a wing. He knows how light's supposed to hit the forms and wrap around it. The blue bounce that's coming and reflecting off of this guy's body. So he's spending time designing and lovingly designing everything, but lighting is still pretty much real. And I think if you're gonna go stylized, then a lot of these tricks still apply, including like mocking it up in certain ways, using 3D to start it in certain ways, but then you can push the shapes, right? Because the shapes are all exaggerated, and he's got obviously a very natural, good design sense for how to push those shapes.
Because he's the best.
Because he's the best, right? I can't even talk really in depth about why he's so good. I don't even know, but I'm just saying, look at this guy, he's cool.
But it's his knowledge of the fundamentals that we still apply in everything. Because like the 3D isn't always right, because physically based rendering isn't always completely correct, especially if you're doing it just quick blocked out for concept.
Right.
So you have to know when shit has to die and when you have to change everything to make it look good for the final.
Totally. You should go over to the Unreal area and just watch they had a demo of a boy running around carrying a kite, and they had this beautiful landscape. And I sat and listened for an hour to programmers tell me more than most artists know, and I was upset. I thought it was disrespectful. These guys knew everything about the way the natural world worked. They went to like Ireland and they took pictures of stuff and they like photo scanned all the pieces. They know how light refracts off things. They know the way color and fog work, like to an insane degree, and it really made me realize, and the demo looks outstanding. An artist can definitely plus it for sure, but it looks outstanding, and the reason is I realize how much technical knowledge, how much this job is technical, and how much is artistic. The artistic part is so valuable, but the technical part is like 90% of the heavy lifting. Let me see. Pulling up this thing again. Yeah, like design, that's pure art, right? That's pure art right here. But like all this is technical. This is some art skill right here. This is art skill. These are a little bit of design skills, but so much of this. And I'm gonna do future Gumroads and expand on all this a lot more. So I know I'm just like barely glancing on it. We're going to talk about each one of these categories, what they mean. And actually, maybe we'll pull up one of your pieces.
Well, so one of the interesting things about this kind of stuff, we're talking about artistic skill, which is your eye and like your shape design and stuff, but all of that is really applied psychology too. So you can figure out like what people react to, and everything, if you break it down further and further and further, eventually you just get to pure math. So there's technical applications for everything that we do.
Totally, absolutely. And a lot of times people, like on the design department, like this design, that's the most ambiguous thing, right? Because how do you explain what good design is? That's what people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for art school for, to learn how to be a good designer. It's such a difficult thing to put a finger on. If I was going to give advice to anyone like how to become a better designer, I would say, tell me what you're designing, and look at a movie that did it. And then just do that for the first little while. And then when you're looking at stuff, when you're looking at movies, if you really screen grab a movie that you really think has good design, I mean, you think it's good, right? You don't have anything to improve on it. Did any of you watch Oblivion and been like, that ship was bullshit, I have a way better idea for a ship? Did anyone think that? No. So that ship is way above what you could ever imagine doing, right? So start at just pawing at the door of a genius and try to do what they do a little bit. And slowly but surely you'll get up there. But starting on your own, just lost in the forest, is ridiculous when someone like this really thought, I mean, they worked on this ship for 2 years, right? Designing every aspect of it. So it's a masterpiece by a genius who does this. Daniel Simon, do you guys know who he is? So then might as well break it apart, study it, learn everything about it, and I bet you after you're done, the next time you design something similar, it will look so much more thought out because you had looked at someone who was great. And that's the thing that we never do. Even I don't enough do it, like just screen grab movies that come out every day. And if you want to do cartoony, right, you're like, I don't want to do realistic. How many people don't give a shit about realistic? Want to do just cartoony? Only 2? Okay. For those of you, then you got one guy right here. And you got stills from animated features. Even ones that weren't necessarily that great of a movie, like Rio 2. Anyone see Rio 2? Yeah. It was on HBO recently and I watched it.
It's adorable.
It looks beautiful. It looks incredible. The light, the colors, it's outstanding. Screen grab that, have that up the next time you're doing a concept, and you'll see how much farther your stuff will be pushed along.
But it's not just that too, because like all of these people, the idea it's just to aim higher. You can be damn sure that they're looking at people like Ilya Repin and Jean-Léon Jerome, and those guys were looking at people that we haven't even heard of.
Right. It really does have so much to do with who the best person you know about is.
And they know somebody better.
Yeah, it really, like Jamie Jones, raise your hand if you know who Jamie Jones is. Okay, one of the best digital painters. If you look at some of his like working files, it's all master paintings. And didn't we get that folder we snaked some folder from someone that showed his master studies?
I don't think it was Jamie Jones' stuff. Craig Mullins has been making the rounds though.
Okay, yeah, there was a couple in there that were like some Jamie Jones copies that he did, and he's looking at master paintings and then doing a painting for Halo with that master painting sort of up as like what he wants to copy, and you're like, how dare he had all this head start? He's literally just copying the painting in terms of composition, lighting, and color. And like, that's so unfair. How can he's copying a master and I'm just like sitting there drawing?
People get real weird about it too. They won't talk about it.
They won't.
All their influences and stuff, but it's there for sure.
Totally. Okay, you're putting me in a pickle because these are awesome and it's hard to talk about. Lake, you're gonna have to chime in too. Okay, so he was kind enough to give us some of his concepts, and Lake pointed you out and said your stuff is awesome, so you should look at them. These are really awesome, and I'm going to talk about all the ways in which they are awesome and the tiny little things that maybe I would tweak and improve. Like this is very close to like hireable. This is like, oh yeah, I would give you a test job to work on. So, and here's why. Oh, I don't have any of my brushes. Okay, well that's not a big deal. And I'm left-handed, so I want everything on this side. And who needs the histogram?
You would be surprised. I talked to Tom Schulz for a while, and he told me how to use it to analyze value structures.
What?
Yeah.
What is that?
So the histogram maps basically the amount of pixels at any given value range within your piece. And so if it goes off the top here, basically it means that you're clipping out because that's overwhelmingly a part of your image. And especially if like right in here, although it can become more egregious than that, if it spikes, then you've probably got an area that's like not really refined. It still has a lot of that like really basic Photoshop soft brushes in it.
If it spikes?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a really good example of it in here, but next time you guys are in a Photoshop file, take a look at your histogram. You'll see one random value is spiked up, and you're like, where is that? I have no idea how to find it. And there's a whole slew of ways of isolating that value in your image using channels and like a bunch of other stuff. And you can machine out your values that way, but that's the only useful way.
I'm going to add one more thing because I forgot to add it on this thing. Keystroke, outer keys, keystroke.
So while Shaddy was setting up all of his buttons, I was like, what the hell are you doing? It's completely alien to me. I would never be able to work on this machine.
No, it's like I have my own whole thing.
Because instead of mapping stuff to my keyboard and the touch strips, I ended up mapping a lot of the tools to my pen. I use the radial menu. I have the color wheel mapped to my pen.
Radial menu, huh?
Yeah. But like people use this strip thing. I completely removed it and I use the color wheel that's inherent in Adobe and yeah.
Okay, let me erase this. I just wanted to get rid of animated zoom. Okay, yeah, I like zoom on the pen. It's crazy, right? I like zoom on the pen because it's a very like, it's something that can be done in like click, 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 click. It's like it's real clumsy. Like I like grabby hand here on this thing, and I just mapped it right now. I like Alt or F key like changes modes. You know how in Photoshop when you try to move something and it's in the wrong mode, you can't move it? Super annoying, right? I just push the F button now and I have it on a hotkey because I need it for moving around. I got Alt always right under the finger, right? Yeah. So you can like tweak stuff really quickly. What kind of brushes we got here? That's the one thing I forgot to add. Touch strip for the brush. Okay, there we go. Okay, so in a lot of ways, okay, so I'm being super nitpicky, right? So if I was looking at this and I was like, all right, what would I change or add to this? I'll just do like, and I'm going to reference it relative that chart that I was showing you earlier. I would say all this in here is an A+, right? Yep. Because it looks beautiful, it has color, it has subtle hue shifts. You got some reds and blues sort of coming through there, which is really nice. You got this light, and I love how you put the light in here. And you know how normally when you're a concept artist and you put a light in something against a wall, then you do orange light all over this shit? Well, you wouldn't do that if you've ever looked at a light, right? Especially a light bulb. Every light emits a different amount. Light bulbs don't emit that much light, especially if it's dusk.
None of it competes with the sun.
None of it. And so ambient would take over and you'd have a little bit of light in there. So I would look at this and I'd be like, oh, this person knows that. One little thing, you know? And that's a thing that fits in, let's see here, F, because I'll keep bringing this up. That's a thing that fits in, oh, why'd that rotate? That's here in the lighting fog. And lighting fog is two things that are just, this is a tough one to teach. This is just something you get from observation. And you learn more and more tidbits. But I see that light, I see that it's not casting orange. I know, oh, they know that in dusk light, the bulb wouldn't show that much.
And you never feel like you're good at this. Justin thinks he's terrible. He thinks the rest of us are terrible. We all think we're terrible.
Well, how would you go about getting better at lighting? Does anyone have a thought? Look at shit.
That's it. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, and it's not that hard. You just never have looked at anything. I was just reading this book on subliminal psychology because I just thought, I just watched House of Cards and I was interested in how to like control people. And it had this awesome, no, I'm just kidding. But the subliminal psychology book had a really interesting thing about how we only take in the information we need to survive, and we need to do that. So we pass judgments on people instantly. We make all our decisions based on the collective idea of what it is. But we don't even remember thoughts clearly or remember conversations clearly. We remember the gist. Really good at remembering the gist, not good at remembering the details. And that's part of the reason everyone sucks at lighting, is because you've been walking around your whole life. Every day, you've had how many days? You've seen the sun go up and down, and still you think the shadows are black. Now, how the hell is that possible? Have you never been outside? No, you have. You just never paid attention to it. All you needed to know was there's some sun here and there's some shadow here, and I just keep walking and watch out for lions, right? So that's all your brain really has time to process. So if you actually go outside, even if you don't paint, don't even bring a sketchbook, don't do anything. Just put your hands in your pockets around sunset. Start at 6 and just look at what happens. Do two things for me. Look at, these two things will help you insanely with your lighting. Where is the pitch black? Where is the pitch black when you're standing outside? See the areas where there's pitch black. You'll find out that it's almost nowhere. You'll find out that it's only inside, underneath a roof that's underneath a thing right here. It gets black right in there. And when you start noticing that, you'll be like, okay, a huge thing for your lighting is just like, where's the pitch black? Okay, when you're doing a concept, where's the pitch black? It's hardly anywhere. Tone down on that pitch black. And that opens up this whole world of saying, well, shit, if it's not pitch black, what color is it? Ah, well, now you got a whole can of worms. What color is it? That's a whole nother thing. But just knowing where the pitch black is, and the other one is, where is the blown out pitch white, perfect white? Where is that? It's the sun and nothing else. So if you just point out when you're sitting at sunset, watch from 6 o'clock till the sun goes down, where's the pitch black, where's the white, and just watch how it's changing, and take a deep breath, turn your phone off or leave it in your car, and just observe. Don't even paint. Even painting you don't notice. You have to actually just look. Your lighting will improve 1,000,000-fold. How did you get this lighting like this with the light bulb? But I mean, did you have a photo reference that you were looking at? That was like, do you happen to have it? Okay, what did the photo look like? Was it a light bulb? Kind of in the situation. So there you go. He found a photo that already had lighting in this situation. But the reason
already done.
But the reason you have to go outside to do it is because photos are all wrong all the time. Almost all photos are all wrong. And if you want to look at a photo and know how exactly it's wrong, you need to have seen it with your eyes in real life, because your eye camera is just way better. The other thing I would say is this person was kind of bold with color, right? You have all these beautiful blues and oranges in there, which shows a sensitivity to color, which I like. What else? The rocks are really sexy, right? That's shape juice right here. That's B1, sexiness, shape juice. So the shapes have those big, simple shapes. Now, I know that the real rocks didn't look like that, right? Where'd you get this idea to turn these rocks into this? Eitan? Eitan, right? So you just, like we were saying, do you guys know who Eitan Zana is? Have you watched his Gumroad? Did you watch his Gumroad? You watched his Gumroad, then you did what he did, and then it looks awesome. How hard is that? Law of increasing awesomeness, right? Okay, let me pull this up. Okay, I can talk about it here. The point was, you go up this mountain, and there's people up here, and if you see someone up there, just follow them up the same route. And that's what you did. So you leveled up a million times because you just saw what Eitan did and was like, I'm gonna do the rocks like exactly the same way he did. Now eventually you find your own way. You guys know ArtStation? How many of you guys have portfolios up on here? Okay, cool.
I do not.
Okay, you don't? I would say if you're starting out, and I wouldn't waste any of your time on a website. Some people totally disagree with me. A lot of people in the industry disagree with me. Just make an ArtStation. I don't want to mess around looking at shit, and I don't want to. Your formatting probably is weird. You're not a graphic designer. Like, why? Why spend the money? Why spend the time? Make an ArtStation. Send me a link. I only spend 2 seconds looking at a portfolio. You see the first image, and then you're like, okay, I know what this person's about. So there's no reason to. If you have your own site, cool. But send an ArtStation link too, because I almost think that that's better. Cut something out of the process. Okay, this is one of Eitan's students. Here we go. One of his students that started just like listening to Eitan a lot. Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh God, you son of a bitch.
Still in school.
Graduating right now. Just because he listened to everything he said and tried to do it verbatim and worked his ass off. But not just because he worked hard, but because he was also like following in his footsteps, you know, just trying to do what he did. And gonna probably get hired anywhere he wants, right? Anywhere he wants. The concept game is not some like magical get your foot in the door. You don't have to know anybody. You don't have to have a certain personality. You can be super quiet. You can be super outgoing. Our guys have all different kinds of personalities. None of that matters. All that matters is your work. That's it. Nothing else. And as soon as your work is good, there's going to be people like hounding you. Me, first of all. Send it to me first, and I'll want to hire you. And then I'm sure a million other people will. Sung is like got too big for his britches, though. That son of a gun. Okay, so the only thing I would say about this painting, the only tiny critique I would have, and I talked about this in the tutorials thing, is the detail control and simplification. Both are really good, but the detail control means that there's kind of an even level of detail across the painting. And this thing is perfect, but this is a little bit photo-y. This is a tiny bit photo-y next to something that's too brushy. So that season to taste thing is that, it's hard to even notice, but that's what makes that last, and you'll notice it, really look at this painting. Everything about all the pieces of grass are so subtly textured and designed to match each other. So if he felt like there was not enough texture detail in here, he would bring it in a little bit. If he felt like there was too little in here, he would push it back or push it forward. So this has an even distribution of detail density based on the realistic style that he's going for, right? And it's such a thing that you just need an eye for. But for example, if this house is this real, then these rocks are a tad too simple. This rock is a tad too brushy. This is a tad too photo-y. So the way you would fix it is, what would you do?
I would get new photos and just drop them in.
I would get new photos.
The shapes are fine.
The shapes are fine. Maybe you keep some of the shapes. Maybe you add like another little ridge here. A little ridge. You'll season it to taste, but you might add like a little bit of a ridge here, just so that when you look at this and look at this, you look at these two together, and you might keep the big things and just add little things. Or you might grab a photo and like paint in some little better way of the way the snow is. And only because this is too close to this, right? Like maybe here it was okay, but because it's getting closer to here, to that focal point, you kind of need to have everything dial in. And so that sensitivity to season things to taste, again, this thing determines the style. The most realistic thing determines like, okay, that's the bar. So then this is another high focal point area too, so probably this foreground of rock needs a little more detail. The grass is like, you got, first of all, lots of colors in the grass, overlay. What are those, overlays? Overlay mode? And then, yeah, the grass is starting to disappear and just turn into a shape. And look how nice that looks, because now you have detail here and softness here. But it's a really hard thing to critique. Like you blurred out some of these bushes. See that? He like smudged away some of the detail in these bushes. Like why did you do that? Too sharp. Why was it too sharp? Yeah, it was distracting. It was like distracting from the point of the image. And that doesn't even make any logical sense, right? Why would you blur a plant that has no reason, it's not out of focus, right? It's not out of focus, so why would you blur it? As a feel thing, as a feel, he's like feeling out where the detail should kind of zero in and be. Once you dial in that last level of detail control, like I was saying, and you are aware that it exists, then you can start tuning it and working on it. Just being aware that it exists. Don't even have to be a pro at it. Just know that it's there as a thing, as a last level thing, and then you'll look at every one of your textures in a different way. You'll be like, how do these all relate to each other? You know, it won't be just the big things, you'll get down to the tiny things.